This is the regular session of the Harwich Community Preservation Committee. It's being held in the Don B. Griffin Room, Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, 02645 at 6 p.m. It's December 8, 2022. Okay, welcome guests. Is there any comment from the guests? Would anybody like to speak? Hearing nothing, hearing none, we're going to go to approval of the minutes. Okay, can I have a board approval for the CPC minutes for October 13th, 2022 and November 10th, 2022? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is a moved and second. All those in favor? I'm sorry, discussion. I caught myself. Any discussion, please? None? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, under new business. The vote to return the CPC project open balances to the CPC appropriate accounts. They are Article 32 of 2021, the housing coordinator for $50,000. We're going to take them one at a time. So, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next, Article 32 of 2022, part-time housing coordinator, $50,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're getting into the presentations. Okay, here we go. Presentations, 2022, 2023 CPA funding request. Each applicant will be given 5 minutes to present, roughly, followed by a 15-minute increment of time for discussion of the CPC members of the board. So we'll start with, it's close enough, HP 8, Old Fire Station Restoration. And that amount request is $350,000. And the presenter is,
This is the extra one, which is more than 13.
Okay, and these are gonna go into your, application folders.
okay, would you please identify yourself?
Yep, Joe Rigo, Harwich Fire Association, resident of Harwich.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, thank you, committee. I'm applying on behalf of the Harwich Firefighters Association. Actually, today was the day we fully purchased the old Harwich Fire Station on 203 Bank Street. We are tenants in common with the Harwich Conservation Trust. They're trying to preserve the access to the Coldbrook project over there, and we're trying to preserve the history of the first fire station to the town of Harwich. My application was to kind of historically restore the exterior of the structure, make it weather tight, make it look like 1928. And then my association is looking forward to, further down the road, through fundraising and other avenues, creating a museum/hall on the interior. They're in the discussion phase of what they're going to go further with that. My application was pretty much complete. I had one issue with a brick veneer, and I finally got some numbers, and I emailed and sent in some copies of that. The only other little issue I had with my application, and I'm not able to present today, is the Historical Commission minutes where you guys supported me. I don't have the minutes to hand over yet, but those are the things I have. I don't have. So, I'm open for any questions, comments, pointers, anything.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. We're going to open it up to the board. We'll start with Robert.
First of all, the Historic Commission did approve, or to support this project. The question I had, the bill or the estimate that came in for the brick veneer
Yeah.
seems to be way higher than what your budget was.
So my budget was an unofficial, unprofessional, I've had a very hard time getting masons to visit me or give me numbers. This just happened in the last week, and yes, the number is significantly different. Where, if you look at the quote that they gave me, they gave two quotes. One is to veneer one side, the front, and then the other is to do the front and a side of the building. And we're not gonna do that side of the building one, we're just gonna do the front one that I highlighted. So I think it was 19,000 something,
25.
25,000.
Right.
That
So-
A side.
A side, yep. So I'm off on that, and if I'm able to modify my value in this position here, I will. If not, we will try to make up the difference, I imagine.
Yeah, didn't you originally plan to just do the cedar shingles on the,
Cedar shingles on the Bravo, Charlie, and Delta side, and then the Alpha side, the front side, just a brick veneer.
right,
The building is originally a block, a red block, and in the old pictures, sorry, it's black and white. It appears to be like a brick look, and we just kind of wanted to get as close as we could to make it look like brick, but not the block.
the block, was that like a ceramic type block or
It's
something?
just a red cement block, yep, and it's, you know, this size, you know, face, regular mortar. It's the structure, it's the load-bearing structure.
Oh, it
They just
is.
it was never veneered or anything back then. It was get this thing up and park the old fire truck in it.
Okay, and is that under the cement, isn't it?
It's
like
under
a
that
plaster
stucco.
or cement stucco right
Yep.
now?
Yep.
And no desire to restore that part,
To break out the stucco and,
or is it,
I don't know if I could get someone to do it.
okay,
I had trouble with the veneer.
okay.
Yep.
That's the questions I have.
All right, all set, Robert. Joe?
All right, at the very beginning of the presentation, did you say that your organization owns this building now?
So today, we signed papers from the town with the Conservation Trust, and we have yes, we own it, deeded to us today.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks, Joe. Elizabeth?
No. It looks
Mary.
good to me.
So my only comment is to echo what Bob said, that we did vote to support the application. We did talk about the brick veneer on the foundation, which is what prompted the follow-up from Mr. Rigo. The one thing I just want to point out for the board and for the people in the audience is, obviously, we voted to support the application before us to seek money. When they go and do the work, they will still, because of the age of the building, likely have to come before us for demo delay. Is it old enough? It's not old enough.
Not
So
just Mrs.
Yeah,
28.
yeah,
I couldn't remember whether we were.
2028, it'll be 100 years old, but I agreed
You'll be
that I
done
would,
before then.
I would like to use you guys as, we're not trying to skirt around it, we want to make it historical, so, you guys did offer for me to come in and ask any questions and get pointers on how to,
I knew we had said that there'd be follow-up later on, so
probably many times.
we're there whenever you need us.
Thank you.
Other than that, I had no questions on the application.
Okay, you're all set, Mary.
I'm all set.
Kathy?
Yeah, so, could you give us like a little history of when it went from 2 bays to 3 bays, year-wise? And then what year is this engine that you want to keep in there? Was that engine ever kept there?
Yes, so the history of the building is 1928. The vehicle that we own, I apologize, I didn't say that in my presentation, we own the first fire engine, 1928 Maxim. That truck was purchased through town meeting in a May town meeting, and that was what the whole, things weren't like they were today back then. It came in around 27, 28. It was held in a barn down by Cumberland Farms, a garage by Cumberland Farms, until this entry station was put together for this truck that we own. That was 2 bays. The second truck in some of those pictures you saw was a used Maxim that they had bought to have a backup. And then I believe in around the 60s, they put the third bay on because they purchased a ladder truck and they needed a long extra bay. And then there's a back section, which I believe was around 70s or 80s, And that was for accessory pieces, boats, spare vehicles, stuff like that.
What do you plan on doing with the back part, or do you know?
Well, exterior-wise or interior-wise? Or both?
Anything?
Okay.
I mean,
Um,
everything that you've.
So the back,
Everything that you've estimated is for that initial building, correct? Not the back part, the extra building.
So it does include, like shingling the backside, roofing the backside, putting in windows to match the front side. We kind of want to make it look like it's all in one. We have no intentions of demolishing it. Most of my membership wants to keep the back end. And we want to make it look more 1928 Cape Cod like it belongs there.
Okay, how about the antenna?
You can have it.
I don't want it.
The antenna is
Just wanted
coming
to know if you
down.
guys are removing it.
No, we will be removing the antenna. There'll be no need for an antenna.
Okay, all right. I took a look at the building today. So the doors, the rendering of the doors in your application.
Yep.
Is that different from what the doors are gonna look like? Are they gonna look more like the ones that were there? I couldn't really tell from the overhead.
So overhead door, they quoted us, it's a more modern door. It's not the handmade wood swing-out door. It's a modern garage door, but they swing out to look like the old doors. That's what we got quoted from them. That we also got the overhead door quote, and they just gave that to us for fun. We said, thank you, but we don't want that. So our goal is to try to make the doors look like they did. One caveat, the doors originally had just lights in the top. We want to make lights top to bottom because we want to show off that antique fire truck. And then once we start building up more memorabilia, hang on the walls and stuff, we want to have a light on inside or somebody can see it when they go by and stuff like that. So that would be a change that we're looking to do.
So the doors are not gonna be replicas of the doors that were there. They're gonna be more like the rendering in the
Yes,
drawing. here.
correct.
Okay, and, they're not mechanized, they're not any automatic, it's just a swing.
No, they
they're
barn
gonna swing
doors,
open this
yep.
way. Okay.
They have the ability to be mechanized, but we haven't discussed whether we would do that or not.
Okay. The windows, are you gonna put windows in where windows have been boarded up?
Absolutely, yep. I spoke with historical and I asked for their opinion on the light patterns and types of windows to get their era specific, and they gave me some information I wrote down.
Okay. I guess that's it for now.
All right, thank you, Kathy. John?
Yes, thank you. I just want to follow up on Bob's question about the veneer cost. Because you seem to imply that even though you're only doing the front,
Mhm.
that still, that estimate came basically above your original total job estimate.
Correct.
So, can you just blow that out a little more? Explain that? How, I mean, what's the overage there? It wasn't clear to me
Yep.
from reading those figures what exactly the implication was. And if you have to come back for more or go and raise money elsewhere, how much, what is the shortage here?
So I budgeted 15,000 for the veneer, and it came in at 29 something. Apologize, I gave you my copies, so 29.
You want
Do you want a
one?
cop?
Here, sweetie.
So I have a $14,000 shortage roughly, give or take. You know, we're a fundraising association. We have an account set aside already for this project. It's the little things, you know, from the purchase to the lawyer fees, to the insurance, to the electricity. So if, you know, with your recommendation, I mean, I can increase the total value of my application by the 14,000, or I can just, my association can make up the difference. I don't want to overstep my boundaries here. My first application. Does that help?
So, would that difference, that 14,000, is that in a contingency you've already included in the proposal? Was there a contingency, like 10 or 15% of?
I did do a 10%, you know, cushion on my proposal. just in case, these are estimates, clearly, and I did ask for hefty estimates. So I did 10% because who knows with the inflation and all that stuff. So my intention is the project's not gonna be $350,000. My intention is conservatively, we'd spend less than that asked value.
So I understand that to mean that you think that it's likely that that $14,000 overage would be included in,
The 350, yeah. And if not, I'm not coming for more money.
okay, thank you. All set.
Elizabeth?
Sorry, quick question. So the brick we're talking about, it's only that bit around the doors?
It's very small, I know.
Okay, I thought I was missing some somewhere. Thank you.
So did I.
That was my question too, this drawing here.
That's our conceptual plan, yep.
Okay, so where is the brick? I mean,
Really,
aside from,
really, it's the pillars between the doors.
is gonna cost you
That's the estimate,
$5,000?
that's the only estimate I could get. Yep,
I mean, it appears that they had more brick back then.
it does.
Right,
Well, so the actual, that picture now and the picture you see of the building today, those doors, those metal doors hide a lot of it because they have an overlap to screw to the building. When we remove those old doors, you will see a little more pillar. But yeah, we hope to make it look like that,
Okay.
yeah, seems a lot.
Question to one of my board members. Does this have to go through the whole procedure for vetting as far as the town's concerned? Or is this theirs now and there's no procurement involved?
I don't think there's any procurement involved because they now own the building,
Yep,
so.
we own the
it's-
building and the
it's
land.
It's a third, they're essentially a third-party applicant as opposed to a town applicant.
Okay. All right, are there any more questions from the board? Joe?
So the original application, I was just looking online, is like 3097, but you're at 325,
I thought it was
is that right?
So, so my estimate page, you're talking about 3097?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, the application, I believe I wrote, sorry. I wrote,
I get so many addendums
Yeah.
of this stuff, you know what I mean? I get
got
very
it.
confused. I'm on, and by the way, am I on agenda 1215 of all the agenda changes?
I don't know.
I don't know what you're looking
Okay.
at, Joe.
okay, project amount requested is 350,000, and my estimate spreadsheet comes out to 309766.91.
Right.
Yep. So I didn't wanna ask for exactly 766 and 91 cents. I didn't know, with the estimates, what was gonna happen,
Right.
So the
there-
difference is the newest things that you just showed us today, or,
The difference is that this one thing, the brick veneer
Yeah.
today, only difference value-wise.
Thank you so
So
much.
it would be, to answer your question, it could fit in that 350
Yeah.
if everything goes okay.
yeah, okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, I don't think there's a need to.
Okay. All right, anything else from the board? Hearing none. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks. Looking forward.
So Jan, this one's 1215,
Say again.
this one's 1215, this week's agenda,
Right, you don't want 12:15, that's next week.
so 12:08.
Okay,
You want eight.
next
I have two of
is HP 6 Revolutionary Civil War Memorials Project. Request is $256,282.40.
Yes.
Robin, you have the floor.
Hi. Can you put up my little, I have a short PowerPoint, very short. Okay, so we're doing a Revolutionary War and Civil War memorials. The request is $256,282.40. Our bids came in at $232,984, and we did a 10% contingency fee. We are doing, the Revolutionary War Memorial has 284 names on it. and it was 174,738. And the Civil War had 146 names, and it was 58,246. So this, I just wanted to tell you where we got all of these names from, because there's a lot of names. So I don't know if everybody knows that Brewster was part of Harwich during the Revolutionary War. And so all of their Revolutionary War veterans that are buried in their cemetery have to be placed on our memorial. That's why the number is greater for the Revolutionary War. So these are just, I went through all the volumes, and I had to read, this took me 2 years, read all the, a lot of this inventory that you read is handwritten, and it's not typed, so it's a very difficult records to go through. We did have a lot of help from other outside people, so I just wanted to put down all the different places that I got the information from. I'm just going to put up a couple of the veterans. John Dillingham, he was born, it says, in Harwich, but he died in Brewster. He lived at the same address. It was just, I just put it in there so people know that it changed from that time period in 1803, turned to Brewster. So he is buried at the Dillingham Burial Ground, which is in Brewster, and that's his memorial. And then this is another one. This is Alicia Berry, and this just talks about, this is all the information that I have to get when you put somebody on the memorial. You have to say when they went in, where they served, when they came out. You have to make sure that they did not desert. I mean, there's a lot of information that goes into them. And this is his pension file. He retired to Vermont, but on the state of Vermont pension file, it lists that his enlistment place, which I already had anyways, was the town of Harwich in Barnstable County. So this is Nathan Cahoon. This is another issue that that came up while we were trying to do all the research. Cahoon spelt like 4 different ways in all of the different records because it's all transcribed. So what we did was, we're going with the traditional Cahoon, Cahoon, and that is his record on the right-hand side. So it is a lot of information that you have to go through when you do it. So the next slide's going to be the Civil War soldiers, which was much easier than the Revolutionary War soldiers. We have 146 of them from the town of Harwich. And we just went through all of the different, I had a book, the original book that I went through, and I read page by page by page. And then now they're all indexed online, which made it easier for me to cross-reference to make sure I didn't forget anyone. The issue with the Civil War soldiers is that Hardwick and Harwich, because they're transcribed from handwritten records, so I had to vet every single one of them where they were buried to make sure they were not from Hardwick and they were Harwich residents. Okay. So this is Cyrus Ellis. He was a Civil War soldier who was buried in Island Pond. He was in an unmarked grave, so I had to go back and get all of his military records. Shawnee Carroll, our veterans agent, helped me get them, and then we got a memorial placed for him at Island Pond. Okay, and then I just have when we were approved at the Cemetery Commission meeting. It was the 26th of September, and then we went to historical and we were approved on the 19th of October. And then I have a letter of support from Shawnee Carroll. And then my last little slide, which is probably going to be very helpful to you guys. I have been working with Joe Powers and Megan Eldridge in trying to get a donation form set up. We have several veterans agencies that want to give us a large sum of money towards this project. So I have Carol Coppola was supposed to set us up an account. Of course, she left in the interim, so I'm working right now with Anne-Marie Ellis to have that set up, and I think I have to go before the Board of Selectmen to have that letter submitted so that I can accept those funds to defer the cost of this project. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. All right, I'll open it up to the board members. We'll start with Elizabeth.
So if you get the money from the other people, would you then return this money to us?
Yeah, so, and I'm probably going to know about that before it goes to town meeting. I'll know how much they're going to give me. I've been in talks with a couple of them for about a year and a half now. I just haven't been able to get the account set up here to receive checks. So as soon as I get that and we receive the money, I will then send a letter to you guys letting you know how much we received.
And where is this gonna be?
It's going to be at Evergreen Cemetery, and right near where the flags are that we got placed from a previous
Oh,
CPC article. Yep.
Thanks.
All set, Elizabeth.
Yes, thank you.
Mary?
No questions for me. It's a big project and a long time coming.
Yep. Thanks.
John?
Yeah, just one question. You referred to they require certain things for putting somebody on the memorial. I'd just like to know.
Yes.
Who it is who sets these standards? Who's telling you what you need?
So when I worked with the Veterans Agency first, and then I also worked with the DAR. So for the Revolutionary War, I had to work with them. At first, I was only going to do the Harwich ones, and they said no, because when they entered into service under the town of Harwich, so they have to be listed on our memorial.
That's the DAR.
Well, not just the DAR, but then I confirmed it with Shawnee Carroll, so, yeah.
All set, John?
Thank you.
Robert?
All set?
Joe?
Good.
Kathy?
Yeah, just a couple of questions.
Sure.
Do you have any kind of a drawing or rendering of what this is gonna look like?
Yeah, so I did just the other day contract with somebody. I gave this to a monument company, and they just gave us a kind of a sketch, but I'm going to have a 3D rendering made so that way when I give the donation letter to BSC Group, who originally designed our Veterans Memorial Circle in Evergreen, is going to do one for us.
Okay, where exactly, is this the old part or the new part?
This is the new part. And as you,
There's nothing in there now except the gazebo.
yeah, so the gazebo's been removed from the circle, and the electricity is up, and the panel is up for the electricity for the flags. We're going out to bid for the hardscape. You have to put down the bricks before we put in the flagpoles. So they have to go out and do the holes, but these are gonna be on the outside of there. So if you see where the gazebo is on one side, and then you'll see on the other side, which is where the veterans section is, it's gonna be on the veterans section, which is across the street from where all the memorials are now.
Okay, because I mean, this is gonna take up a good amount of space, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, right now, there's nothing in that space, and it's always been like a walkway supposed to be there eventually, not now, but as you come in, the cemetery, and you're facing the circle, it's gonna be on the left-hand side before you hit where the flags are.
Okay, are there any other Revolutionary War or Civil War memorials in town?
Well, there are, but not with names listed on them. I know there is a memorial somewhere that just says, it's just a small plaque or something that says, for one of them, I can't remember which war it was. It's in one of the little circles in town.
Okay, so there's nothing
No.
else? Okay. And you have a revolving fund, right?
Yes.
So how's the revolving fund funded?
So that goes from when we sell cemetery lots sales, and it goes, so I used to have a maintenance account for the cemeteries, and the revolving account is for upkeep and maintenance of the cemeteries.
Okay, and is that, what percentage of the revolving fund, what percent does that represent of your entire budget? All of it?
All of it. I get a very small budget, which pays for water and for my mileage, and that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask you a question of who, did the town put in all the spigots
No, we did. We put them in.
through the revolving fund?
The spigots that are in the, we paid for that that came out of when we developed the Evergreen Cemetery, is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Okay, when we developed that, we paid for that out of the perpetual care fund, when we designed and, put everything in the cemetery. We put in the roadway, we put up water lines, we laid the cemetery out, we cleared the land. That all came out of,
There's a lot of spigots,
yeah.
excessive amount of spigots. 26 spigots in the new section alone.
Yeah, people water their plants. We allow them to do plantings around their graves, and they water them. And there's a well in there, so we don't have to pay for water on that side of the cemetery.
That's good, that's good.
Are you all set?
Yep, I am for now.
Okay. Have things been soothed over with the town of Brewster?
Yes.
Would you consider talking to the Brewster CPC?
I would. Actually, there's a couple other people in Brewster who are private residents that wanted to donate some funds to the project as well.
That's great.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else from the board about this particular topic? Okay. Moving on. HB 7, North Howard Cemetery Fence Post and Rails Revised Project.
Okay.
Requested amount, $94,600.
Okay, so I have a different little PowerPoint for this one. Okay, so this is to, oops, that was right. Okay. So it's historic restoration of the fence post and rails at the North Howard Cemetery. And it is, the revised application total is $94,600. I just gave a brief history of the North Howard Cemetery. It started with the First Baptist Church in town. It's located in North Howard on the corner of Main Street and Depot Street. There used to be a meeting house right at the top of the hill when you first go to that cemetery. I don't know if everyone's visited it. It has kind of a little open space there. The second church was built then across, the way, and there is a small church there across the street from there now. The earliest burial's from 1783 at Shubukali, and the cemetery was turned over to town with the Acts of 1948, Chapter 277, and it went to town meeting in 1949. So the next slide, please. So it's hard to see on this slide, but I think you guys also have this map in your packet. So the cemetery itself is surrounded on three sides with the granite posts and rails. So there's 120 pipes, and they'll be cut to length because some of them are 8 feet, some of them are 10 feet, depending on how the poles are raised, the granite posts are. So the cost of the galvanized pipe is $34,500. The labor to install the granite pipes, every single time you have to install a pipe, there's 3 pipes per granite post. You have to tip it, slide the posts in, and then tip it back up. So as you do it, and go along so they don't fall out. So the total cost to fix the fence is $86,000. We did a 10% contingency fee of $8,600. So the total project is $94,600. And then the next slide. So it was approved at the Cemetery Commission meeting, and then the Historical Commission, and Alan Hall's here as well. Alan is the one who actually brought this project to me. His family's buried in this cemetery, and he would like me to move forward with this article.
Okay, thank you. Open it up to the board. We'll start with Joe.
So the steel pipe, the 96, this is all for the piping that's gonna get replaced?
Yeah, the pipes and I think, yeah. So
There's no granite, you don't have to worry about the.
now there's one piece that's broken, but we had a piece that was laying down in the woods, and that was the confusion when I put in the first article. I thought the fence. Can you go back one slide? Okay. I thought the fence posts went all the way around the cemetery because there were a few there. They took them back to the DPW. So there is a couple that are broken, but we have them already. We're just going to move them back when we replace them. So we don't have to buy any more granite.
And this pipe, this 120 pieces is to replace the entire thing, or those that are needed?
Pretty much every single pipe, I don't know if you've been down there, is
I
either,
haven't, that's what I was asking.
is either got holes in it, or it's bent, or there's probably a few you could salvage, but not many.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. Kathy?
Well, I did go to the cemetery
Yep.
today, and I didn't think that much needed to be replaced at all. Like, maybe 15 at the most, and that was generous. Just because they're bent a little doesn't mean that they don't have life in them. There were a few that were rotted. I have a quick question for you.
Okay.
So you have 120 pieces at 21 feet each.
Then you cut
That
the,
equals over 2,500 feet of rail. And you're saying you need to replace 700 feet of rail. So I don't understand that statistic there.
so, I wish I brought Tom Blue with me, because he's the one who did this quote. So some of the posts he's probably gonna reuse, and some of them are not gonna be reused. And what he's going to be doing is going through them all. Some of the ones that are on where it says our road, that stuff is all covered with vegetation. So we don't really know what's under there until we remove.
The bottom rails are covered, just the bottom rails.
No, some of them in there,
Our road, I walked it this morning.
Okay.
So, several of the lengths, the bottom rails of the 3 rails are buried, but they're there. Again, we don't know the condition,
Right.
but they're there.
yeah.
Okay. So, I don't understand how we come up with needing 2,500 feet of replacement rail.
I could bring him in if you guys have further questions and have him answer that for you if you'd like.
This is an estimate,
Yeah.
so could we possibly get a firmer estimate?
I can have somebody else do an additional estimate, if you prefer.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, no problem.
Kathy?
Yeah. So, has there been maintenance done on the rails before this?
Yes, there,
Were they replaced or painted?
so there was a couple accidents that happened on this road, which is odd because it's a straightaway, but people have smashed into this fence a couple times. And when we went through insurance, the DPW did the insurance through them, and they went through a company and they replaced some of the rails, but they didn't put in galvanized pipe rails, and they completely rotted out. I wasn't involved with the insurance claim, and it went through Chris Nickerson, because he handles all the roadway ones. So then it got hit again, and the next time it went through, I said, you have to make sure they use galvanized pipe. So, and one of the pictures, can you go to the first slide? So see these ones right here on the first, in the middle picture? See how rusted they are? Those are ungalvanized pipe. And if you see the ones that are further past it, those are galvanized. So those 3 actually were from the second accident, and those ones are in good condition.
Okay. Because it does look like some were painted.
Yeah, I think somebody did try to paint them at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, try to make it last a little bit longer. Yeah.
But can galvanized steel be painted?
It doesn't really have to be painted. So if,
Some of the railings look like they look fine. They're
Yeah.
just discolored right now.
yeah, again, I went down there and I checked quite a few of these, and when you roll them, they're like corroded underneath the bottom of them. So, I mean, we could do a site visit. You guys want to go down and do a site visit?
Kathy?
I've already been there.
Okay.
thanks.
I was there today as well.
So the average size you said was 8 to 10 feet.
Yeah, 8 to 10 feet.
So you'd get like 2 sections out of one of these 21-foot.
Right. And they only come in 21-foot lengths. You can't order them in 8 or 10 feet. You gotta order them in 21, and then have them cut.
Okay.
All set?
Yeah.
Mary?
Nothing for me.
Robert?
Nothing.
John?
I only have a comment, which is, I had the same question Kathy did about the number of rails, but then I decided, and maybe I got this wrong, that there are 3 rails per section, and that makes up a lot of the difference. That's just a suggestion. I don't know if that's really what's going on or not.
Yeah.
All set,
Thank you.
John? Elizabeth?
I just have a selfish question.
Yes.
Do you think they're gonna be able to do this from inside the cemetery? Because
Yes.
that corner, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
they,
there 4
they
times
do
a
do,
day.
yeah, they do them from inside. So we replaced these in Evergreen. We had a CPC article before for replacement of the rails in Evergreen and in the South Harwich Cemetery. And they did both of those from inside the cemetery, not from outside on the street. That is a tough road.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else from the board? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Yep, thank you.
Coming up next, R14, Skinnaquit Pond remediation.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to excuse myself and join
Thank you, sir.
those in the audience.
My name is Ann Helgen, and I am the president of WASH, which is the Watershed Association of South Harwich, and I'll be making a short presentation today. I do have some additional material here. One is a letter of support from WASH members and property owners that I collected signatures on. The other one is a copy of the slide presentation you'll be seeing tonight. And lastly, there's one copy, I have 13 copies of those, and then one copy of the authority for the signers on the letter, because I couldn't, everyone was scattered, so I just had them either send me a signed letter or an email citing that they wanted to be a part of the signatories.
Okay.
Take it.
Secretary,
Thank you so much.
Heinz, you're the project manager here?
Yes.
So would you help out with the presentation, please?
Good luck.
So, yes, Heinz has been working with us on this, as well as Amy, too. So, you can move to the next slide. And I have a bit of a cold, so if you can't hear me or understand me, please let me know. I just wanted to familiarize everyone with Skinnaquit Pond. As you can see, Uncle Vini's Road kind of comes down towards the beach on the south side, that would lead towards Red River Beach. And the Herring Run is right over on the side. It actually goes underneath Uncle Vini's Road out to the Red River estuary. In the upper left-hand corner of the map are 4 Harwich Conservation Trust parcels that are owned by them. And then you'll see the town-owned land, which is about 9.8 acres at the very top of the map. That is designated wetlands. It was a former cranberry bog, and it's now designated wetlands. There is small public access to a trail. It shows a road in front of the town-owned land. That doesn't exist. It's just a cranberry bog, kind of a marsh that comes into the pond. There's a small public access path at the end of Ocean Street that makes the pond accessible not only to people who live in the area, but to anyone who chooses to come and fish or do anything else with that. So, in 1998, Skinnaquit Pond had a major toxic algae bloom that killed off fish, eels, freshwater clams, tadpoles, all sorts of things. And so the neighbors and the pond owners got together and kind of on their own tried to do an oxygenation project. There were 2 different feeders, and they paid for it and put it in themselves. That was not successful. And then they worked with Heinz for several years. Between 2000 and 2007, all of this took place, putting in barley bales, and then a Fukui, if I pronounced it right, biocord, both of which were intended to attract nutrients or somehow mitigate the algae, and neither of those were successful. During that time, WASH was formed, and in 2007, WASH installed the Solar Bee, which is a water recirculator that has been on the pond for the last 15 years, and we think it was somewhat successful. But in the last couple of years, we have faced significant toxic blooms. I think in 2021, the summer of 2021, the pond was closed for 6 weeks due to cyanobacteria. And we commissioned a study from Water Resources Services that stated that there's no way to restore the desirable P level, phosphorus level, without doing some sort of remediation, because you can't really address the internal load through just, trying to, not, I don't know, through other means. So, next slide, please. I think on that slide, I just kind of skipped over it, but it's a small pond. It's about 18 acres, but it is a great pond, according to the state. And you'll hear more about the herring run. So why Skinnecook Pond? It's an active spawning grounds for the Red River Estuary herring run. We do get a herring it's not as big as the other ones in Harwich, but we do have a herring come and spawn in the pond every year. And Heinsohn and his crew go out and clear that path so that they can get up to the pond. And it dovetails with the Tuttle Red River Estuary land grant that was made to the Harwich Conservation Trust, because that was an important part of that, and without the pond for spawning, the herring would not come. It's a biodiverse ecosystem that supports wildlife and plant species in a critical natural landscape and surrounding core habitats. So both the town-owned wetlands and the herring run are designated critical natural landscape by the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program, and it's home to a variety of species on the Massachusetts Species of Greatest Conservation Concern list. And I think you saw in the application that we listed all the ones that were not, there wasn't a formal inventory done, but all the birds and animals and things that we've seen over the last few years on the pond. And then it was designated impaired waters with one of the highest eutrophic index scores of ponds in Harwich. Another reason to do it is it's engaged and formed property pond owners. Over $100,000 has been paid, private money has been spent through WASH in the last 20 years to buy the Solar Bee, install the Solar Bee, and maintain the Solar Bee, and to try other types of programs to mitigate algae growth. And last, we do believe there's a public health risk from toxic algae blooms for anyone who uses the pond. And unfortunately, although the pond, the health department posts it, when we have cyanobacteria blooms, often renters and other people don't see that or aren't aware of it, because it is posted just at that little teeny public access that's not on a main road. It's off of Ocean Street. So all of these are reasons to remediate and to put the project together, but I'd like to talk a little bit about why CPA should fund this project. CPA, so next slide, please. This project meets the CPC funding criteria. CPA funds would support town-wide goals. And although I have a lot of verbiage and references down here, two of those goals are, one, improving water quality for the water table, and the second one is to preserve, enhance, restore, and prevent further degradation of habitat for various types of species that live in and around and migrate through the area. So it's not just the denizens of the pond, but it's also a lot of other birds. Every year I see new birds, new species on our pond. And so I've listed where specifically, I mean, the main, the Red River fish run was identified as a significant critical habitat by the local comprehensive plan and the open space and recreation plan. I mean, I know I think the open space and recreation plan is part of the local comprehensive plan, but I just listed both of them. And preserving and enhancing inland coastal wetlands and wildlife and plant habitats is a major, page 1 goal of the same plans. And so that's what I've listed down there, but you can go through that and see what this does. And as far as the water is concerned, the comprehensive waste management plan noted that it was impaired and eutrophic. Skinnaquin Pond was impaired and eutrophic, and it said it was in need of it was one of the ponds that was in need of prioritization for sewering or an alternative. The sewering project that Harwich is looking at now does not include the area around Skinnaquin Pond, so that's not going to be done for many, many years. And so this is an alternative that would meet the proposed proposal of the comprehensive waste management plan. Next slide. There are other CPC funding criteria that they ask you to address. One is feasibility and affordable. This is the lowest cost and most feasible of the remediation options that were provided to us by Water Resources Services. It's more proven than oxygenation, although we've been watching what the Orleans Pond Coalition has been doing up in Orleans. It's less ecologically disruptive and much, much less expensive than dredging. And it's a proven, alum is a proven treatment to mitigate algae growth. And so we picked this one because of that. It's consistent with recent town meeting actions. The appropriation of CPC funding for alum treatment of Hinckley's Pond in 2018. It preserves an important town asset or threatened resource, both the water quality and the surrounding habitat, as well as enhances the herring run spawning waters. And then it leverages CPC funding. The WASH paid for the initial water and sediment study done by Water Resources Services. In the Hinckley case, that was charged to the CPC project. So this is a private part of this project that was assumed by the WASH members. And in addition, for years, actually our resident scientist and water collector, Joe Dell, is here. We have collected samples that have been taken to the town and been used for the PALS program with Heinz. And so this would also continue going forward. And we believe there will be an order of conditions that would involve where some of the measurements that will be taken will be able to be used to satisfy that order of conditions. And then it addresses public health risks arising from toxic plumes. And lastly, it's supported by the Conservation Department, the Natural Resources Department, the Conservation Commission, the Water Department, the Health Department, the Recreation Department, and the Harwich Conservation Trust, all of whom wrote letters of support for this project. Next slide, please. I'd like to just address public access. I think in an ideal world for the town of Harwich, they would like to probably see additional recreational access. Unfortunately, and the town will work with us to help improve the access and remove some things that are in the water that shouldn't be there and that kind of thing. But the existing public access is really not conducive for development or expansion of access. It's designated wetlands. There's really not, I think the path is probably on designated wetlands right now. The land management plan states that the town-owned land is all within the resources area and is preserved as habitat. No trails or recreational use was recommended in that plan. And it was not identified as a recreational asset in the open space and recreation plan unless the town acquires additional pond. 10 years ago, when the land management plan was done, there was a piece of property adjacent to the town-owned land that was for sale, and they said, well, this could be, if the town bought it, it could be used for additional habitat as well as recreation. But that piece of property is now in private hands, so that opportunity is no longer exists. And then practically, there's no room to develop parking really on town-owned land, and it's not visible from the main road, so it's not easily policeable, which I know has been a priority in terms of developing new recreational and public access places, because there's been a lot of problems with other conservation areas and people not treating them well. So, the next slide, please. I put up the cost estimate here. We got two estimates, one from Solitude, which I think was involved in the Hinckley's Pond, has done a number of ponds on the Cape, and the other, they recently acquired one of the other ones we were going to talk to, but there's a third one, Water and Wetland, that we also spoke to. Both of them came sort of in the same, they bid slightly differently, but and Solitude did mention that their price had gone up significantly because of inflation. Then the pre and post-treatment testing was a WRS estimate for the 2-year monitoring report. The permitting would be handled by the town. The ongoing monitoring would be handled by the town and WASH. So the total treatment and follow-up estimates is about $80,000. We added a 15% contingency for two reasons. One, because of inflation and just hearing what Solitude said about the increase in costs, and also because of access to the pond, the concern about how we would get a 16-foot boat that they need, that's just the smallest boat they have, to do the treatment. And we wanted to make sure that we had enough funds and that we didn't have to come back, or we didn't have to, rejig or something. And so we added 15% given just where things are right now. And then I added in and showed that if you were to compare this to Hinckley's Pond, it would be $107,000 total, of which 14.3% has been funded by WASH and its members. Thank you very much for letting me provide that overview. I know the report is very dense, so I wanted to be able to highlight a few of the points.
All right, thank you for your presentation. I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess right now.
Sure.
So can we go to recess, please?
Okay.
While they're doing that, I'm gonna pass.
I'll open the questions up to the board. We'll start with Elizabeth, please.
Thank you. First of all, there is going to be a lot of help coming from the county. We just passed, I'm on the Assembly of Delegates, and we passed the Freshwater Initiative, which the county commission is gonna go all over everything. And they're gonna be looking at all different treatments and stuff,
I'm sorry,
so.
I have bad hearing.
And they're going to be looking at various ways to
Yes.
take care of this.
And we
'cause-
have been in conversation with them about a dredging option that they have brought up.
Right,
It's just very early in the
Yeah.
process, and we don't know whether it really would even work for the pond because of the size of the pond, but we would, we would have to look at that. I mean, in some ways, that would be preferable, but in other ways, it might be ecologically not preferable. So we're thinking about that.
Right.
And we did try to contact the county, they just weren't organized when we were putting this together in terms of how they wanted to.
right, because they've just set up,
Right.
we had to prove it, all that. So this is being worked on by other people, so hopefully you'll have better help next year, is what
Okay.
I'm trying to say. The main question is, alum is not all that it's cracked up to be. It won't get rid of the really bad cyanobacteria.
It doesn't get rid of it, it improves the phosphorus column improves the phosphorus level in the water column, and has been successful in other ponds
Okay.
for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, okay, but just so you know, because you said, 2 years ago you got a really bad cyanobacteria problem, and I'm not sure alum will.
Well, it wasn't just
And-
2 years. 2 years ago, we've had cyanobacteria blooms almost every year, at least for the last, I don't know, how much, would you say, 5 to 8 years, or 10 years? I
Yeah,
mean,
Most people do,
usually in
right?
late summer, it just has become much worse in the last several years where we've had late fall ones for a long time. We've had them during the summer earlier, later. So it's not a permanent fix. We understand that, but it's the
It's the
least
best you
expensive,
can
it's
do.
the best thing right now that we could, and the least expensive to put together.
Okay, thanks.
Also, Elizabeth. Mary?
So I have a couple of questions with respect to the land itself. I'll be honest. It feels like this is more a watershed application than it is a town application. And if that was the case, then I think it should have been a joint application, just from my perspective, because it really feels like you're driving the bus here more than our town officials are. So that's that raises concerns for me to some respect. The town did just do an alum treatment on Hinckley's Pond. This board had significant discussions during that whole process as to whether that was ever going to be supported or not. And that article, I believe, is just finally probably ready to be closed, Heinz?
Yep.
So, so from my perspective, that's a perception thing that has an initial concern for me. There's no reason that a third party and that a non-town entity can't come to us. It just feels like it was presented as totally a town option when it really doesn't feel like it is in general from your presentation.
Well, we've worked with Heinz and Amy for many, many years. I mean, on a number of different projects. And when we came to them with this, they were both very supportive of it. They weren't sure they had the bandwidth at one point, and I said I would help out with gathering some of the information on the application.
Understood. I mean, just from my perspective, I think for transparency's sake, it's better for us and for town taxpayers to understand what's truly going on. I know there is some town land there, but it is clear that it is not all town land, and it seems like the pond is perhaps privately owned as opposed to.
No, ponds are owned by the state.
All right,
and
so
the town.
that was my question,
Yeah.
because the
And
way
they're responsible for the upkeep.
the way
of
you
it.
had mentioned it in the conversation, it almost felt like it was a privately owned pond.
No,
to me,
I
so-
mentioned private funds have been used to,
Okay.
but with all the right permitting and with all
Okay,
the
and
discussions with the
I
town.
wouldn't expect otherwise.
And, yeah, I mean, the state, it's a great pond, so the state oversees it
Mm-hmm.
through the through the town. And so the town is the one responsible for doing whatever gets done to the pond.
Okay.
And you can't do anything without the town. And it
Understood.
needs to drive that project. And we knew we needed to have and we went to, I mean, we've been talking to Heinz. How many years have we been talking to you about this? For a couple of years at least.
Yeah, I started in 1998 water sampling within Skinnicket Pond, and I'm very familiar with it. And over a year and a half ago, we became intimately aware of what was taking place within the blooms, how long they were lasting. I'm fully aware and in support of what the town had done in the past, whether it was that Fukui biocord, whether it was the aeration, the barley straw. And when the Skinnicket homeowners asked, what could we do? I see that the town, through CPC, was able to treat Hinckley's Pond. I said, that is an option. But I would recommend first that an evaluation and study be done by that, and it's gonna cost some money, and it was nearly $20,000. I didn't have that within my budget in terms of a time frame and getting that done. They quickly got that completed, and the recommendation from that was, the best option at that time was an alum treatment at a much lower dosage and amount than Hinckley's Pond because of the size and so forth. And so then I supported a CPC application in which they gathered a lot of information. And I've been on Zoom meetings with not just Ann, but the entire
Group.
Watershed Association and vetted things out and edited things and gotten support from Water Department and Conservation and Health. And so it is a town-supported application.
Okay,
I
good.
didn't want it to come across like that. But they
Okay,
have a
yeah.
really good idea of what they need.
All right, great.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you.
All set, Mary?
All set?
Robert?
Looking at the Exhibit 8 in the report here about the,
Exhibit, what, 8?
7, the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan Assessment of Ponds.
Oh, yeah.
And this is really a question for Heinz. It's showing Cornelius Pond as being as bad. Is that correct? Am I reading this right?
There are
And Grass
ponds.
Pond?
Yep, there are ponds that are sampled more frequently than others, and so the more data you get, if you catch it, quote, at the wrong time or right time, if you want to use that term, you can get eutrophic conditions. And I think almost any body of water on Cape Cod, especially this past summer, is certainly susceptible to that. Now, what causes an algae bloom directly to cause that? There are multiple ingredients and the amounts in which they come in, whether it's drought, high temperature, stagnant water, all that kind of. So there are times, I certainly would agree that Cornelius Pond, when
This is also from 2016, yeah.
when that took place.
Well, the question is where does this Skinnequit sit in priority of these others?
Equally so. I haven't had any, well, you see Hinckley's Pond, that was 2016, so that was addressed.
Yeah.
I haven't, Grass Pond, there isn't, that's not quite the eutrophic. And Cornelius Pond, we've had water sampling done there over 20 years. There's about a dozen ponds, some come and go. Cornelius was on that list for a while. I can't recall the last time that it was water sampled to the same fulfilled degree of amount of samples over a summer. And
So you don't actually do all these ponds every year and sample them?
No,
The
not all of those.
APCC, the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, has been doing testing and has a huge program. And they started testing Skinnequit. And I didn't include this because it's not an official, although they have rated, Skinnequit as impaired and other ponds too, I was advised that that was not a formal kind of government type of agency. It was a advocate, and so those things, I probably shouldn't put those in here. So I used the comprehensive water management plan.
The other concern I have is, and this was a big issue, I believe, with the Hinckleys, is public access. So we're using public town money, yet it doesn't appear, and you did explain very thoroughly, that there really is public access to the pond, whether just go bird watching or whatever. Am I assuming that at this point?
There is a
Right,
path. It's fairly wide. It had poison ivy for a while. It's been cleaned up. The town has committed to putting different signage and kind of cleaning it up and taking out. Some people sometimes have put up, put in some wooden planks to try to make a little bit of a dock there and everything. We do get fishermen from other places. I see every summer, I see fishermen who aren't from the pond who bring their boats in and, tool around and.
And this is the one that's the access from Ocean Street, right?
The what?
That Ocean Street?
Ocean Street,
Is that
yes.
the access? And you've already said, though, there's no room for cars to park or anything.
Not really.
Okay.
And we occasionally get a group of teenagers or someone or somebody who, because on the internet now, it'll show, here's a pond access and people will come down and use it, but,
Okay. Thank you. So my
And
questions.
I think Joe actually looked at the homes around. There's probably, a number of homes in the area that do use the pond through that public access. Not just those adjacent to the pond, but in the neighborhoods around there.
Oh, Sarah, Robert?
Yes.
Amy, would you like to, okay. Kathy?
Yeah. I'd like to applaud your efforts over the past however many years that your group has been trying to address these issues. And your report is, great. Is there a landing for people to put
For the
boats
public
in?
access, there's
Not
not,
for the public access. I was at the public access.
Okay. What do you mean a
A
landing?
landing, so if you said that they need a boat
You
to
could
put
launch
in
kayaks.
to do the alum treatment, where is that gonna go in?
Well, when Water Resources did their thing, and I think, Heinz, you're familiar with this too, they've accessed it through somebody's private land. There's a couple of places, including my neighbor's property, that is a low, kind of slopes down to the pond. This boat is going to be larger and might be more difficult. We might have to use a crane or something else to get it in the water to do the alum treatment. And that's why we put extra, contingency in there, because
But still, it probably would be a private residence that would allow a crane on their property to put the boat in.
Well, we'd have to see whether we could do it. I think that would be hard to do from the public access, because it's a pretty long trail, yeah. So yes,
Okay.
probably would have to be done somehow.
All right.
I didn't mean to interrupt because you brought that up.
Yeah.
Hinkley's Pond had to go through that same thing. They had to have a public neighborhood allow the entrance of a pontoon boat at the end of their dead-end road, and, you know, they were okay with that, obviously, because the pond was being treated. But there was no crane involved, but we did have to, because there's no really public boat
Yeah.
ramp at Hinkley's either. But
We might be able to do it on a private, we just haven't had the people come out and look and tell us that they, and, you know, there might be some remediation of the lawn if they're taking a trailer down with a big boat on it, you know, you might have to,
Is the solar bee, will that be removed?
that will be removed. Yeah.
Just kidding. Well, anyway, I did go down there today.
Mhm.
There's really no public access to speak of. I mean, I would not even have known how to find this if it wasn't described in the application here, where to even go. You know, you're parking like there's a small circle in front of two neighbors. The path is, you know, barely 3 feet wide, and when you get down to the water's edge, it's maybe 5 feet that you have access to, so it's really not public access. I mean, I'm sure neighbors access it, but it's not public access for what we would consider public access when we ask the question. So, but it's a beautiful pond, and I did see a great blue heron as soon as I walked down there. It was gorgeous.
Did you, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we've had, yeah.
All set.
That's it, yep.
This isn't my wheelhouse. I'm a layperson when it comes to these discussions, but one question.
Yep.
Should the Board of Health be involved in this in any?
I spoke to the Board of Health, to Katie, maybe, and she submitted a letter of support here, and she has been involved with the cyanobacteria. Did you not see her letter?
No, I didn't see it. I missed it.
It's at the end of the application. Kathleen O'Neill,
you know,
Right, she's our new,
and I fully support this application to improve the overall health of this pond in the area, and she talks about algae and about phosphorus and how the toxic algae blooms in there, yeah. So we did reach out to her.
okay,
And
my apologies for
I
that.
believe, and Amy, you would know this better than I believe that they're involved when we get notification of the cyanobacteria blooms. 'Cause I get notification from the town when not just me, but they post and there's notification of the, and then we try to spread the news among our members because most people don't see it.
Yes, Amy Usowski, Conservation Administrator. The Conservation Department, the Natural Resource Department, and the Health Department all get notified of the results of water quality testing by the county or APCC. There's a couple entities that test this pond. So we get notified now that we've been working with Wash a lot. We send that over to John or Ann. We post it if there's an issue, but all three departments have worked collaboratively on water quality issues in the town.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Kathleen was the one that told me that the APC testing wasn't considered, wasn't used officially, so that's why she didn't want that in the application.
Okay. Is there anything else from any of the board members?
I have a question for you, but I had a question for you too.
Go ahead.
Can I do that? Is public access a requirement for a project like this? No.
No, but
Okay.
most of the projects have public access, especially when you get to town meeting floor.
Interesting. At the very beginning, someone brought up dredging.
Yeah.
Is that an option to alum, whatever?
Well, it was one of the options that was listed in the water services study. At the time, there wasn't this county looking at possibly doing it in smaller ponds. And so the costs, the timing to get permitting and
Yeah.
the cost was gonna be,
Tenfold,
we thought,
yeah.
in the millions.
That's what my question was, the cost.
And so,
Okay.
and also Amy had mentioned to me, she felt it was ecologically very, not a good thing for,
Disruptive,
especially for, where are you gonna put all this stuff too?
Sure.
So we're talking to these people, but we're not optimistic that it's gonna be an answer.
Thank you.
And, you know, I realize public access is an important thing. I view this as meeting other town goals that Harwich has to keep the water, I mean, we went to the water department too, to, you know, remediate, water quality and that kind of thing, so.
Well, again, this board makes the recommendations,
Yes, I know that.
and then it's town meeting. that-
Yep. I'm very familiar with that.
Elizabeth?
Just one more thing I want to point out. The DEP just recently came out with all sorts of new regulations.
Yes.
And anything the town can do towards watershed
Yeah.
restoration is going to help the townspeople, because if the town doesn't have all of their watershed plans and everything given to DEP, each individual homeowner may very well have to come up with their own new septic system or something in 5 years. So for people watching who are worried about it being a private pond, it's still a good idea, I think, because the DEP has really made things difficult.
So
Mary.
to Elizabeth's point, it was in the news this week that what they are looking to require is a fast system for every homeowner in order to mitigate the nitrogen levels. So instead of having the normal septic system that you would probably currently have, if it's not sewered, you would require a fast system, which is what is typically required within so many feet of water. So that is contained and it's its own treatment plant. So, you know, I replaced my septic system 2 years ago, and I may still have to put an additional tank on if that comes true. I would still have to put a fast system on that's an enclosed system to treat the,
Which will be,
based on the new regulations
Yeah.
that DEP just passed this week.
right, which
Okay,
will
so
be
they have
way,
Elizabeth is talking about.
Yeah.
But if you have something already in play
Grandfather.
through,
That's not what they're saying
they're
under the new regs.
no,
They're talking about
What they're
replacing.
saying under the new regs is requiring, instead of a standard Title V, like a standard Title V, they are now saying you may have to go with the fast system, which is the encapsulated, it has a mini treatment plant built into your septic system.
So how
So
do
it's
they
what
take-
you would do if you were on the water.
how do they dictate that to the individual town health departments? They
It
have
was
no-
literally just passed this week and
Yeah.
it was on the news, like 2 days ago.
right. But the good thing is that if the town, if Harwich is responsible enough to put in watershed plans, that postpones the homeowner's need to do anything. And one of the things that this law did was it took a 40-year plan and made it 20. Except if you're showing good faith and you're working on the plans, you can ask one time for an extension, which is another 20 years. So if we're organized enough, homeowners won't have to come up with something in 5 years, and it can still be 40 years, and the county is going to, we have this septic loan program, so people get loans at 0 to 4%. And if we have to do this, that'll cover these as well.
And the town has a comprehensive wastewater management plan that's approved by EPA and already been, it's already going through the process of the phases, so we are well on our way, but not there yet, but we have taken a lot of good steps to fulfill those requirements, yeah.
So my question is, again, this is kind of off target,
Yeah,
but
that's
it may
fine.
be related to you. The county can't supersede the health department of the town of Harwich or
It has
Brewster.
nothing to do with the county.
This is legislated from
This is
Boston?
DEP, this is DEP
This is
in
the
Boston.
state.
It's changing their Title V rules, essentially, so that they may
So they
require.
already passed the enabling legislation.
They passed, I believe it was local regulations, this week is, I believe, what it was. But the news story was that they are looking to require all homeowners to have to put in, if the nitrogen isn't mitigated, and if you're not mitigating it through sewer, which was one of the concerns that I had for you when you said that Skinnequit Pond area wasn't scheduled for sewering,
No,
was that they are now saying that if you're not mitigating that nitrogen, they may require all homeowners to put in a fast system.
You should be very upset.
I will be very upset if I have to add something to it. And I thought it was 15 years, but I will defer to Elizabeth on the 5 on that. But regardless, right? It's a real issue that came out this week that I don't think has filtered its way down to anybody other than through the Boston news channels this week. So.
All right. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
very much, and
presentation.
I just wanna thank-
appreciate your time.
I want to thank Heinz and Amy. They've been very helpful to us over the years, so
Good luck.
Thanks for coming.
on this whole.
It's a lot of good work you've done. That's hard.
John, do you care to join us again?
He's gonna sneak out the door.
Okay, we're gonna move on to old business. Discussion on the CPC logo and signs. And I apologize to the board, I kinda dropped the ball with this with other things going on. So, are there any new thoughts on how the board will get from A to B with this? As far as the design, what we intend to do, how we intend to do it? I'll throw that out again, and we'll start with Mary.
So I will apologize that I missed the last meeting, so I don't know where you left it with the last meeting. I think it's an important idea, an important piece of our funding for educational purposes and for the general public to know that the taxpayer money is spent on these projects. So I don't know where, last I recall, there was difficulty getting a design in, so.
And Carol was leading that up.
And Kelly,
And I'm sorry, Elizabeth, my apologies.
and Kelly too.
So, and they ran into some roadblocks. So is there anything else that any of the members could come forward with ideas on how we go about this? And I'm not gonna single anybody out, just,
I'll make a suggestion. You could always look to Cape Tech graphic design students to see if anybody wants to give it a shot, and whether it's a contest or whether it's see if anyone wants to try and do a design logo for us. I don't know if there's a way to do a prize along with it, but
Kathy.
Yeah, so let's just figure out, like, what are we using the logo for? Are we using the logo primarily on signage? I mean, I'm not sure we even came to an agreement about the signage. I mean, some people on the committee thought it was a great idea, and some people think there's too many signs, and somebody wants something that's sort of easily removed or disposable. So what are we looking for a logo for? I don't think we need a logo for our applications or anything. Is it strictly for signage? And in that case, should it be associated with the town of Harwich, like more like the town of Harwich's sort of thing, since we want to represent the taxpayers of Harwich?
Elizabeth.
I don't know if you remember, I passed those out. I think that if we had a logo, something like this, you know, that would be able to be could be on our letterhead, it can be on every sign, it can be on our brochures, and then it can be adapted to what we're gonna do with signs, because some places would want like the library has a permanent plaque, right? So that could be in the corner and then say, money provided by Harwich Community Preservation Committee.
Money provided by
By
the
the taxpayers
taxpayers.
of
Taxpayers.
Harwich through Community Preservation.
Through,
Foundation.
right. So you could put that on the plaque with the little logo. And then you could put it in a temporary sign, or you could put it on a big thing. And it would just, the logo would catch people's eyes. And eventually they would associate that logo with the CPC. And if you have a designed logo, then you can make a sign say anything you want to with that art. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I do. John?
Yes, well, to respond to Kathy's point, or question is, what are we using this for?
Self-promotion.
Okay, that's a global goal.
But that's
What
what
do
it
you mean by
is.
self-promotion?
It
Nope.
is self-promotion of the CPC to demonstrate to the taxpayers of the town of Harwich how we have used their money.
Right. So I agree with that. My point was more microscopic than that.
Oh,
which
you're the
is-
weeds.
No, it's not.
Go ahead,
Perhaps.
John, I'm sorry. Go
Perhaps.
ahead.
That's okay, Dave. I'll joust with you all night long.
And I enjoy it.
I do think that although the effort to figure out an electronic presence has kind of stalled a bit here, and I agree that it's a puzzle, but I think that we shouldn't lose sight of that when we're designing a logo. It's not just to go on signs, it's something that would work electronically wherever. If it's Facebook where we have a presence, I don't even know, because that whole world is changing right now anyway, because of like the troubles of Instagram, not Instagram, whatever it is.
Twitter.
Twitter, thank you.
Twitter, Meta.
What, all those people are struggling right now, but that world is gonna continue to exist, and we need to just keep that in mind when we're developing the logo or whatever.
In layperson's terms, we don't have the ability to have, for example, a hard copy and then a soft copy later?
Of course.
Well,
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, when you design the logo, we should not just use as a goal something that can go on a sign or on a piece of letterhead. It should also be designed with the use for electronic application as well. And I'm not a designer, so I can't tell you what the difference in what you would consider in that case. I'm just saying that should be part of the requirement.
Let me go through the board and then I'll come back. Robert?
Was Carol going to come up with some designs? I don't remember
It was kind of up in the air. She couldn't get access to,
Yeah, no, I mean, if she doesn't have some thoughts on it, she's very qualified to do that. I mean, certainly the vocational school, that's be an interesting thing to do for it. But that's all I have to say.
okay. Joe?
No, I agree with both these people. I think it should go to the tech and just get started with at least one graphic design and then decide where it's gonna be placed down the road. But I'm all about self-promotion and solidity of the sign. Wherever we put it should be there for good.
Mary? Thank you, Joe.
So, not speaking for Carol, but my understanding of what Carol was looking at was really branding, right? Branding for us to be used everywhere. Do I think it's 100% essential that we have a brand for us like Coca-Cola does? No, I don't. But at the same time, there is certainly value to it. And if we get a logo, we use it on, to John's point, wherever as it comes up. You know, you use it on the signage that is permanent. You use it if it's some places being built. You use it on a temporary construction sign while a project is being done, and then on a permanent, marker for, later recognition. If and when we start doing more of an online presence, yes, it should be a logo that can be, and the understanding should be that we are using that logo in all mediums, whether it's electronic, paper, rock, scissors, wherever. But I think there is, once you get a logo and you start using it, then it will promote a brand, and it will eventually, over time, be recognizable. And hopefully we'll get to the point where the taxpayers understand that we are spending their money, but we think we're spending their money in a reasonable way, and for items that are benefiting all of us.
I like the concept of the tech school. Does anybody on the board have any connections to the tech school for graphic arts?
Sort of. My husband used to teach there, so he would know who to contact. So I can certainly ask him how I could go about that.
I mean,
Here it comes, Elizabeth. Would you be willing to step into the void?
Contact. I will find out. Okay.
And if we had a competition, if they put together some type of for the students, some kind of a graphic competition, could we use admin funds to fund something
I don't know why not. I
for a
think
prize, for example?
I don't know why not.
Yeah.
And if we can, I'd be willing to pitch in some,
Yeah, I would do. But
You know,
I'm sure.
I'd be willing to pitch in some money to go towards it.
But I'm sure we could, because we could use if we were just hiring someone to design the logo,
Yeah.
we would
Would
be
be
paying
using the
them.
admin funds, right?
So why can't we pay the kids? It's just, hopefully it won't cost as much as hiring a professional.
Never know
And-
today.
And to the other
You treat it like,
question.
you treat it like a scholarship prize almost.
Right.
You know?
And to the other question is, nowadays, all graphic design is online.
Right.
So they do it all on the computer, then they print it on signs. It's not like it's designed for paper and also needs to be put on separately on electronics.
Okay, so
know, so-
my question, next question would be, John, would that answer some of the questions you had? If they set up something I understand the concept,
I'm just,
John just wants us to make sure we don't forget about the electronic mediums.
right,
That's all.
that's all I'm saying.
I'm with you,
And
John.
I don't think there's anything inconsistent
okay,
with that goal about what anybody's saying here. It's just when you state the requirements to the designer, just gotta make it clear what they're doing. And somebody can do a design on a computer that's just for putting on a signpost somewhere and
So-
not designed for anything else. So that's not what we want. That's all I'm saying.
so what do we, if we go to the kids and ask them to design, have a competition for a graphic design in some way, shape, or form, do we have to give them a specific number as far as the size, shape, weight, whatever? If it's gonna be developed into a hard copy, soft copy's easy, you already have it.
I think all you have to tell them is what CPC does. These are the things that we do. We support historic preservation, we support open space and recreation, and it's Town of Harwich taxpayer funds, and see what they design. I mean, these kids are
I
smart.
answered
They're
my own
gonna,
question.
Right.
Yeah,
they're
I
gonna
got
know
it.
where to
I
go
got it.
too,
They're
right?
gonna
There
know
are other
what we need.
communities,
Okay.
right?
You know,
They're gonna do they're presumably are smart kids, and they're gonna do some research and see what other communities use.
right. I mean, I did, I was on Cape Women's Coalition, and we designed a logo, which was CWC with the cape and all that. And it was on our, standing banners, it was on our letterhead, it was the circle on our social media, and it could be any size
I got it.
you want it to be. So the kids will know, you know, to make it something that's clear enough so that,
Scalable.
you know, the like, you know,
That's the
maybe
word,
even
scalable.
two, one for letterhead and one if it's gonna be one for signs, because it can be bigger, you know.
Kathy, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think that we really just want this thing to have CPA, okay, and Town of Harwich somehow incorporated. The description of that it's, you know, funded by the taxpayers would have to be in other language that we put on something else. So, you know, we really need to be specific to.
Why?
Who, because the logo doesn't have all that stuff in it.
Right.
Right,
Okay,
that's
okay.
gonna be the language
I
they're
don't
gonna say you want.
understand
Yes,
your
logo doesn't
Yeah.
have all
You're
that stuff in
teaching
it.
me.
So you have the
We're
logo.
basically talking about something that is gonna go on signage, whether it's temporary or permanent or whatever. We're talking about something that, in all likelihood, is not gonna go on letterhead because we don't send any letters.
Oh.
We don't. We send email.
The chair does.
We send emails. We don't send letters.
Right,
Okay, there's a
right.
difference, all right?
It's-
So in likelihood, no. It may be used on the top of an application that's online in the future, but, okay, so the main thing
Our
though
agendas.
is signage.
It's gonna be on signage, it's gonna be on our flyers,
Yeah.
it's gonna be on things like that.
Flyers, and it should be like on our agendas and things
Well,
like that.
it's not as likely to be on all that stuff because there's not a lot of room on the agenda page. I mean, let's get basic here. It's unlikely. We don't really have a lot of room where we put on the top Town of Harwich and all this other stuff. We don't have a
It's
lot of room
doing
to
this-
do a logo.
It's doing a seal for the Harwich Community Preservation Committee.
Exactly.
Right.
That's all it is,
Exactly.
Right,
right? It's
And it's, yes, for the act. It's
Right.
the Community Preservation Act, Town of Harwich.
well, I would say different, I would say it's for us as the committee,
I don't think
and it's
so.
using CPA funding.
I don't think so. I think it would be the Community Preservation Act, because we don't want the sign to say it's from the Community Preservation Committee. I mean, a signage to say that. The signage should be Community Preservation Act funds, Town of Harwich, and then
Well,
whatever
it's-
else we wanted to say.
Right, but to
The
your point,
sign,
that's the
but the logo.
we're talking about a logo.
Right.
And the language that we decide on for a sign later is probably gonna be what David had said, you know, funding provided by the citizens of Harwich through the
Right.
Through the CPA.
Community Preservation Act funding.
right,
You know, so, but I think the logo is the logo,
yeah.
to your point from earlier. Like, the rest of it's gonna be,
These were the examples.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
Where
using,
other towns, remember we had this in September,
Right.
where other towns had done it.
And like we, in the CWC, so we had our identifiable little logo. And then we always had to say, like at the bottom of a letter or at the end of an email or whatever, we would have a line that said, associated with the Cape Cod Foundation, because they were handling our money. So we always had to put a little line about the Cape Cod Foundation. So you can do that with the CPC logo. You have the logo, and then you can always say, you know, funded by taxpayer money through the CPA Act.
most of these have CPA, not something else.
okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay, what I'm trying to do is get a consensus so we can move forward. So,
Don't make her spit out her water, please, come on.
She's trying
Not
not
on camera, anyway.
so,
Did y'all want to do
Elizabeth,
that?
are you willing to take that task on to get the information from the tech school?
I will.
Okay, so our next meeting is gonna be an extremely long one, in all probability.
How did we end up with 2 meetings in December?
Because you didn't want to in November.
It was
You.
because.
It was because of
But it
that.
would've
It
been
was because you didn't
I
want,
was saying I didn't need a meeting before January, so that's why I was surprised.
I didn't mean to say it like that. I'm just saying, it worked
Okay,
out
okay,
best.
and
It's fine.
that's it, hold on. So let's stick with the present topic. Any ideas you guys have about putting the logo together? If you have something, fine. If not, we'll establish a process that we can go through the tech school. Once we establish contact, Would your husband be willing to reestablish his contacts with Tech?
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
you know, he can,
So we can
tell
know,
me
we know
who-
where to go.
yeah, he can tell me like who's in charge and who I talk to and, you know, because he used to be one of the tech teachers.
All right, so I'm gonna torture you a little more, take it one step further.
You want me to meet with the teacher? I can probably do that by January.
Okay, fair enough.
But, you know, I mean, they're.
No, I
they're
don't wanna hear
almost-
any buts. I
They're
wanna,
almost out of school,
yeah, well, how long's,
so they get out around the 20th. Or actually, Mark gets out on the 16th, but he's not at Cape Tech anymore. But I think even,
latter part of January?
you know, so, yeah. I mean, I might be able to talk to them Monday and have it all organized, or they might just be far too stressed until January.
There's no rush on this.
Right, it's not
We
going anywhere.
tend to put things off and off and off. I wanna get it done.
But to Kathy's point, like, the
No,
next
no,
round
I-
of,
th-
no, the
this
next round of funding
This
isn't
is the pleasure
until,
of the chair, not the vice chair.
the next round of funding,
Is that clear, young lady?
the next round of funding isn't gonna be approved until after town meeting. So if she makes contact by January, there's plenty of time before the school year is out to then still be able to have hopefully a logo in place.
I just said that to her.
Right. I'm defending Kathy because you're picking on her.
I don't need defending, I just was making a statement, that's all.
Okay, so we're all set there. Next, on a more serious note, this is for the entire board. There's been some issues with administration from different committees, councils, whatever, dealing with administration. As of today, as far as I know, none of those issues come from CPC. What I would remind all of you, each one of you represents a particular entity, and that's why you sit on this board. If you're gonna have discussions with anybody from administration, don't. If those discussion has to do specifically with CPC, it comes through the chair to administration. And I want to emphasize that. I don't want any backlash for other committees that are working within the town that aren't, in fact, it's the Board of Selectmen are developing a new procedure. So I would appreciate all of you, if you want to have private conversations with anybody from administration, Board of Selectmen, whatever group, have at it, as long as it's not representing an issue that we're dealing with at this table. That comes through the chair. Any questions? Okay, moving on. Would anybody like anything on the next agenda?
You just said we have a long meeting.
It's already posted.
I still,
Environment.
Right,
Well,
we
here's
already
one
have
of
our
the-
agenda.
just for your own edification, this is one of the issues with other committees. Chair boards are not asking their members
Oh.
about the agenda, if they need anything on it. That apparently, again, I don't know firsthand. Apparently, it's an issue. So, I've consistently asked at every meeting, the end of every meeting, to this board, if there's anything that you folks want on the agenda.
No.
No.
Then that ends that conversation. All right? Any questions from the board? Elizabeth?
I have one. The website is great, thank you, David. And it lists the
Name's
project. I mean, John, Jesus.
That's my father.
That's all right, I
Why
did
are
it
you
with
confusing me with
Kathy
that?
and Carol.
Apologies. It's been a really long day.
Don't worry about it.
Today's been a really long week, Elizabeth.
It really is. The website is great, but as I recall, my first year, we had a sheet of every project broken down by what bucket it came from and how much it was.
I'll address that issue for you. the finance director, every October for the past 5 years that I've been sitting in this chair, has provided that information. I've brought the finance director in early November to make a presentation to all the new members, how we got from A to B. That has stalled. I don't know any other way to put it. That will happen, but it's not gonna be forthcoming just yet. So, and it's not just us,
Yeah, I mean, she's
so.
written it. No, that's fine. I mean, the website, like I told David, has all the information I need. It just means I have to like click and click, but you know, otherwise it's fine. I just,
The
I
one
can
thing I
make
would
myself one page.
The one thing I would please recommend to the board, we all know pretty much what the numbers are. Those numbers can't be released publicly until they come from the finance department. So,
Yeah, because that's, you know,
Mary.
trying to get
I'm gonna defend the new
prepared.
finance director and say, we have a new finance director. She's gotta get
Right.
herself accustomed to a new community with new ways of doing things and things that she probably has not reported CPA funds to anybody before. So I am sure we will have the numbers when we need the numbers before we have to make our motions and our votes.
okay.
And that's gonna be my 2 cents worth.
I got it, but I just want you to understand, in particular, because you were the vice chair. We always had those numbers.
And none of them mattered until the only night
No,
and I'm gonna say,
that's an opinion.
I'm gonna say,
It mattered to
in-
the chair.
in my opinion,
Okay,
I never needed the numbers finalized until I was going through and doing the motions and looking and preparing the motions for the votes.
I don't
So from my
disagree.
perspective,
I don't disagree.
I don't give a flying feather what the numbers are today, because I care what those numbers are gonna tell me in January or the beginning of February.
And I-
Because those are the numbers that are gonna matter.
all right.
I don't
don't
care today.
disagree with your argument, but you don't stand in front of the Board of Selectmen
I don't
to
disagree with
make,
that.
to make a presentation every year with those numbers. And I haven't. And I've already told administration
Yep,
and the chairman, I won't. Because I'm not gonna,
and
I'm not the finance director of the town of Harwich.
understood, and I would
Okay,
make the
fair
argument.
enough.
I would make the argument that
You
the
love
Board
to
of-
argue with me, don't you?
it's in my nature and in my job. I would make the argument that the Board of Selectmen probably also don't need to know the numbers or probably don't care to know the numbers until we're sending them our recommendations for our articles. That's when they're gonna wanna know how much money we had available to us and what we recommended. And nobody can make changes to our articles anyway, because they can't go to the floor unless
Well,
we
they
recommend it.
tried that
So,
once. Yes,
so,
we've been there, done that.
so that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay.
But I like to
Or my
have
10
it.
cents worth, as the case may be, as is usually the case.
We're back into the
If
weeds.
we don't have it ahead of time, though, you start doing, and we'll pull from here and pull from here, and I'm like your speaking pole.
And I'll be honest, I don't really start doing the math until I make my decision on what I want to do for my motions, and that's when I do it. But that's me. And you guys may all be very different from me in that respect, but that's me. I look at it right before when I'm ready to make the motions.
Okay, fair enough, Mary. John?
It seems to me that Elizabeth was making two entirely, or
she
to me,
was.
unrelated points.
was.
And I'm gonna address the one that hasn't been addressed, which is, I think you were saying you would find something that is not currently on the web page useful. So my request is, if there is something that you or anybody else thinks should be there and is not there, let's have the discussion here, and I'm happy to make changes. I don't get much feedback, so I don't make changes.
I can't help myself. I'm gonna pull the pin on the grenade and throw it in the room.
Do.
We don't have the money for the buckets.
Yeah, well, what can I do about that?
I'm sorry.
The reason why you're not getting feedback is everybody's saying it's to Dave. So that they're giving the feedback to Dave, not you, because they don't know your name.
Good job.
Little levity goes a long way.
Good.
Absolutely.
Well, just keep it up. That's fine with me.
No, I mean, every information we need right now is on the website, except for how much can we spend?
What's available?
You
but
know,
that
I
doesn't
need
go
my
on the
credit
website.
limit before I know if I can go to Saks.
If that's all you're talking about. I'm not putting
Was there
that-
a second part in there somewhere? You? Okay,
No, I guess not.
that's all right. You can take the mask off and laugh
John,
once in a while.
aren't you glad that you came back to the meeting? I mean, you should have just walked out the door.
I almost did.
You should have.
Okay, so there's nothing on the next meeting is December 15th, Thursday, 6 p.m. here. I'm hoping all of you will attend. So,
Yes.
okay, all right, that's a yes. All right.
I
Is
saw
there,
Jan's email and I went, oh, maybe I don't have a meeting tonight. And then I went, oh, no, I have it 2 weeks in a row. Oh, shoot.
I hesitated in sending it today, but I
It's
thought,
fine. It's fine. It's ready. It's fine.
No, it was
it's a week
very
ahead.
helpful.
Don't want you to forget.
okay, is there a motion before Joe falls asleep?
Second. Seconded. Whoever made it, I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're out the door. Thank you.
Thank you.
You don't want these?
I took my copy, or I had a copy. I don't know if anybody
Oh,
else
well,
needs one.
did it get passed down?